So, Bulgaria is the land that gave birth to the legendary Orpheus, as in Orpheus in the underworld, and also Spartacus, as in I'm Spartacus. I didn't know this. I always thought Spartacus came from Sparta. But it's a bit like that joke where the guy goes, "What's your name?" And he goes, "My name's Tex." He goes, "Oh, you're from Texas?" He goes, "No, I'm from Louisiana. I just don't want to be called Louise." So, Spartacus was born in Bulgaria. It's a country with a long, tumultuous and fascinating history. It's been invaded, conquered by and settled by the Greeks, the Scythians, the Romans, the Byzantians, the Turks, everyone, who all left an indelible mark on the landscape. Bulgaria's medieval golden age was when the Bulgar Khans ruled over one of the largest empires in Europe at the time. It was bright but brief, while 500 years of subsequent brutish Turkish domination isolated the country from the rest of Europe. More recently, Bulgaria spent 4 decades in the shadow of the Soviet Union as a totalitarian Soviet satellite. Not Sputnik, that was a different one. Leaving this small Balkan nation in the shadows as far as the Western world was concerned. It's no wonder then that the Bulgarians are so passionate about maintaining their history and their culture, which has survived often against the odds. In the last years of the 20th century, Bulgaria began opening up, and it's one of the newest members of the EU. It joined in 2007. We're talking about that in history. A few facts. Fast facts. Bulgaria is one of the oldest countries in Europe. It was established in 681 AD. Something that people don't really take into consideration much is places like Italy, Germany, Belgium. They're barely 200 years old, most of them. They've not been around very long. They've really not been around very long as a country. People have been living there. But they've been city-states, or they've been different regions. Like you had Prussia and you had Bavaria, and then they came together and with a bunch of other people. So it has to be German under Bismarck. Since then, Bulgaria apparently like to say that they're the only one who haven't changed their name. They haven't changed their name to Morris or something. Bulgaria rates 3rd in Europe for its number of valuable archaeological monuments after Italy and Greece. So if you're a bit of a history buff, look at it on the map. It is at the crossroads of East and West. It is close enough to Rome to be influenced by Rome. It's close enough to Istanbul to be influenced by Istanbul. Obviously, it's halfway between the two, as we were talking about when we were talking about Albania and also by Bosnia-Herzegovina, that whole area. The Cyrillic alphabet was invented by 2 Bulgarian monks, although they were born in Thessaloniki, which is in Greece today. But when I come to do the geography and everything, the whole area of southern Bulgaria, northeastern Greece, and northwestern or European Turkey was once a place called Thrace, and we'll come on to that in a moment. Who got into a lot of got a lot of scraps, those Thracians. The Greeks didn't like them very much. Andy McAvoy, can people join in the chat, mate? Is that a thing now? Yes. When was it not? But you could always join. Or do you want to? Do you want to actually call me up? Do you want to phone me? I don't know about that because I like to get these shows out and finished in an hour, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that if I stop halfway through to have a conversation about old Ealing comedies or whatever someone wants to talk to me about. Not looking at anyone in particular, but what else have we got there? I'm Spartacus, and so is my wife, says Lee Corn. Uli Kaluda says, were you doing Scotland? People can irritate you by saying it's upside down. It's 90 degrees turned, it's 180 degrees turned, and they'll be right. Well, Switzerland famously has a square flag. The only countries in the world that has a square flag. I bought a city break to Sofia for me and my long-suffering wife in February next year because we never got a honeymoon. Really can't wait. And thanks for this, Graham. That's no problem. Sofia's beautiful. The whole country's bloody beautiful. Graham, you don't horrible flag. You don't like my Antonio Banderas. Oh man, this is the flag. They haven't put much effort into this, have they? Just so you know, obviously, there's a thing about the flag, isn't there? So there's 3 colours. There's white, green, and red. The white is the symbol of hope. The green is nature, and the red, it's lifeblood for the people who fought for the nation, which always is on a flag, pretty much. So there you go. Fair enough. Leave it for Discord after. Yeah, Andy, let's have a chat on Discord, and we're going to have a little game of Trivial Pursuit, I think, and see how we get on. Peter says, Bulgaria has borrowed money from Poland in communism, and they paid back by mass tourism. Polish couldn't afford to travel West Europe, so they traveled to Bulgaria, I assume. You've run out of words there, unfortunately. So yeah, going back onto the sort of the fast facts. Oh, loads. I've got shitloads of them, actually. Sorry, I shouldn't swear. George might be watching. I've got a lot of them. Plovdiv, which is one of the cities in Bulgaria, it's a great name, Plovdiv. Plovdiv is apparently Europe's oldest inhabited city. I don't know how true that claim is, because obviously all the places will have a claim to it as well. But I can tell you this, because almost 1/3 of Bulgaria is covered in forests. Which is pretty cool, and that's a fact. The Bulgarian Air Force developed the first air-dropping bombs. Oh, thanks, Bulgaria. That was during the First Balkan War, which is a couple of years before the First World War in 1912. Bulgaria produces a huge chunk of the world's rose oil. So if you ever buy rose oil, good chance it'll probably come from Bulgaria. The roses are grown in Bulgaria's Rose Valley, which is called Kazanlak, and they're an essential ingredient of in perfume production. The bagpipe, known as a gaida in Bulgaria, is a traditional Bulgarian instrument. The other nations that use the bagpipe obviously are Ireland and Scotland, but yeah, Bulgaria play the bagpipes. So there you go. Now you know. Bulgarians, like the Albanians, they nod their heads to say no and shake their heads to say yes, which is worth bearing in mind, especially when you are trying to communicate and you don't speak the same language, and they're nodding away and they're basically saying, no, you're crazy, don't go that way, you'll die. So yes, just bear that in mind. Bulgarians welcome the spring every year with the Baba Marta. So what happens is on the 1st of March every year, which is the 1st of spring, Bulgarians give Martinitsa, which is a red and white bracelet to their friends to congratulate them for the beginning of spring and for good health, I guess. And you wear this bracelet until, I like this, you see either a stalk or a blossoming tree. I really like that. That's really cool. I just think that's really cool. Bulgarians also like to spill water on their doorstep for good luck. That's a thing in Bulgaria. Also, the first digital wristwatch in the world was developed by a Bulgarian, a guy called Peter Petrov. And also the first electronic computer, which was invented by John Vincent Atanesov. You can look him up. He wasn't born in. He was born in America. He wasn't born in Bulgaria, but I think his parents were. So he is of Bulgarian descent. The Bulgarian team, the national team, they finished 4th in the 1994 World Cup, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. That's what did England finish in the last World Cup? It was 3rd or 4th, wasn't it? So that's pretty good considering the population of Bulgaria is freaking tiny. I'm going to come on to that later as well. Bulgaria is one of the biggest wine exporting countries in the world. Bulgarian wine has a long history tracing back to Thracian times, tracing to the Thracians. Also, it ranks 3rd in Europe for biodiversity, which is great, with lots of rare and endemic species. And there are 9, count them, UNESCO heritage sites in Bulgaria. I can't hope to remember all these. I'm going to read them. They are the Rila Monastery, the Boyana Church, the ancient city of Nesabar, the Thracian tomb of Kazanlak, the Madeira Rider, and the rock-hewn churches of Ivanovo. There are also 2 natural sites, which are the Pirin National Park and the Srebrna Nature Reserve. So I got 9 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and it's dead cheap. Sofia is one of the most affordable places, capital cities in the world to in Europe to visit. Not the world, but Europe. And you can get by on a little bit of money. So the capital is Sofia, which is one of the most lovely names for a capital. I think is just a lovely word, Sofia. The population is just under 7 million. I'll give you an exact figure because this is from December 2020. So just a few months ago, 6 months ago. It is 6,916,548. That is down from 9 million in 1989. So 9 million to 6.9 million. And that's happened in just 30 years. I mean, that's a huge decline. By 2050, that number is projected to be less than 5.5 million. By the end of the century, it could be close to half of what it is now. Why? What's going on with Bulgaria? Well, a lot of people are leaving, and now it's part of the EU. That's probably accelerated that as well. And also, there is a low birth rate anyway. So you add them together, and you actually have a declining population. But there are some positives that come from this. Like, if you want to buy some land somewhere in Europe, in the EU, Bulgaria is probably the cheapest place you'll get some. I would recommend it. And also, it's a beautiful country. I hate it when Bulgarians want to tell me they invented the computer, says Lister. How dare you? It was Babbage. It was Charles Babbage, I tell you. It was Linda Lovelace. Oh, no, she was a porno actress. No, was it Linda? It was someone like that. Anyway, slickest player ever created, says Andy McAvoy. How did England do in the 1994 World Cup? We didn't qualify. No, really, we didn't qualify for the 1994 World Cup. After getting to, the semi-finals in the 1990 World Cup, we didn't qualify. It was in Atlanta, wasn't it? The 1994 World Cup, if my memory serves me correctly, which it probably doesn't. Are there any McDonald's in Bulgaria? Yes, there are. Asperger's, the population of Bulgaria is almost exact same as that of its non-EU neighbour, Serbia. Not Siberia. Serbia, yes, but Serbia is actually a candidate country for joining the EU. And looks like, as long as France sorts things out, because France is like, no more people joining the EU, because they might leave. But it's looking like Serbia and North Macedonia and Montenegro might be getting into the EU, hopefully sooner rather than later, and Bosnia-Herzegovina at some point, and Kosovo, which is going to be the bone of contention, I think, in the region. But that's for another video, I think. I'm going to do a whole video on Kosovo, so look forward to that. Lucky Bulgaria, not totally overcrowded like the UK. I'm sure the population will shoot up after your show. Yes, that's all. Let's all go to Bulgaria. Honestly, it's a beautiful country. I've really got no criticisms of it at the moment. It's just... Yeah, but there's a lot of corruption going on in the government at the moment. Oh, bloody hell, compared with us. Come on. Anyway, so the demographics are 84.8% Bulgarian, and then there's about 8.8% who regard themselves as Turkish. There's a 4.9%, nearly 5% of the population regard themselves as Roma or Gypsy, and the others, or unknown, are 1.5% of the population. The language is Bulgarian, obviously, which is a Cyrillic. It's written in Cyrillic, the Cyrillic alphabet. Named after Saint Cyril. But obviously not the guy who invented it, because it said someone else in my notes. The currency is called the leva, and it's a big but, they're looking to adopt the euro by 2024, I think. So a few years' time, they'll be using the euro. The flag, obviously, I've just talked about that. And the food, let's talk about a little bit about the food. So there's some lovely dishes. There's banitsa, which I had when I was there, which you can sort of buy from the little shops that are everywhere. It's phyllo pastry. It's got eggs and cheese and stuff in. It's really delicious. It's Greg's. It's a Bulgarian Greg's. I don't want to demean them, because I like Greg's. I just, it's a nice pasty type dish. There's also tavator, which is a cold soup, which is commonly made with cucumbers, walnuts, Bulgarian yogurt, dill, herbs, and vinegar or lemon, which is a cold soup that people eat over there. And there's also mishana sakara, which is mixed grilled. So that's your kabash and your ketuft and your pork steaks and skewers of pork meat. And the big thing, obviously, in Bulgaria, which you may have already heard about, is the Bulgarian yogurt. In fact, when I visit Bulgaria in the book Man of the World, available from all good bookshops and bad ones, Man of the World by Graham Hughes, look it up. The Bulgarian yogurt is unique in the world because the Lactobacillus bulgaricus fungus is found naturally floating in the air. Sorry, the bacteria. Sorry, it's not fungus, it's a bacteria. It's found naturally in Bulgaria, and this is used in the yogurt. It gives a unique taste in the yogurt that can only be found in Bulgaria, which is quite cool, isn't it? I mean, that's a way of protecting your copyright, isn't it? No, really, you can try and make yogurt that tastes like this, but you'll never do it because it has to be made in Bulgaria. Let's go into the geography then. Just come on to the few comments here. Is Bulgaria homophobic? Oh God, good question. I didn't look that up. Should we look it up in the Lonely Planet? Should we do this now in real time? I will look it up in the Lonely Planet. Oh, I missed a country out. Britain. Oh dear. I'll have to go back to that at some point. Bulgaria, here we are. Let's go to the back. Let's see. This edition's from like 2007. So it might be out of date, but if you want to you want to look it up, you definitely can. Bulgaria, holidays, sports, discount cards, dangers and annoyances, events, post. They normally have a section for gay and lesbian travelers. Here we go. Consensual homosexual sex is legal in Bulgaria. No problem there then. The best source for discos and bars is www.bulgaria. I like what they've done there. It's Bulgaria, but they put gay in the middle of it. Bulgaria.com. And also there's the Bulgarian gay organisation Gemini, which can help you out with places to go if you fancy getting laid in Bulgaria. So yeah, no problems there. Actually, I need to check that because obviously if I've been reading about Poland from 2007, it would have said, yeah, they're very accommodating for people who are gay. And they've got less accommodating as time has gone on, and so has Hungary. So, yeah, it might be worth looking up if someone can just Wikipedia that for me. Actually, the leather is tied to the euro for a long time now. Yeah, it was tied to another currency, wasn't it, before the euro? I think it's always been tied to another currency. Maybe it was the Deutschmark, I'm not sure. Chubby says, a friend of mine has moved there for 20k for a house and a load of land. They were amazed that I identified a wooden trough they found in the loft, a rye bread fermenter. Ooh, that's cool. We've got Gaz Riley saying nearly everywhere is homophobic, sadly, which is a bloody shame these days. Why would you want to get involved in other people's love lives? What does it matter? What does it matter to you? Uniqlo, they'll have to reprint all the travel guides soon. The former United Kingdom of Britain and Northern Ireland, indeed. Well, actually, no, because in the Lonely Planet, they've got a section, in the European Lonely Planet, they've got a section for Britain, which is England, Scotland, and Wales, and they've got another one for Ireland, which comprises obviously the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. So that's okay. That works. I think that works. And Britain will still exist as a landmass. It just won't exist as a separate country in its own right anymore. But yeah, I am looking forward to us being called the former UK, or FUK for short. By looking forward to, I mean horrifically embarrassed by the fact that that's going to happen. But whatever. Yes, that'd be imprinted on my mind. I can still see the beer mats thrown in the air. What? Andy McAvoy, Ireland 1, Italy 0. Ray Horton, forever a hero. Paul McGrath, single-handedly held off the Italians. Legend. Sounds like the same pseudoscience in Yakult commercials. Yeah, where they have good bacteria and bad bacteria. Do you know what eats you when you're dead, Yakult? Your bacteria. Doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. It'll still freaking eat you once you're dead. You don't get eaten by worms. You get eaten from the inside out by your own bacteria. That's nice, isn't it? Right, moving swiftly on. I don't fancy Sunny Beach. Do they speak English in Bulgaria? Yeah, English is pretty widely spoken. I mean, you can get around. The only problem is that it can be quite difficult to read signs that are in Cyrillic because they're not necessarily in Roman letters as well. They sometimes are, but in tourist resorts, you won't have a problem at all. But if you're going out into the sticks a little bit, you might have some language problems. It's worth learning a little bit. I wouldn't recommend going anywhere in the world without a phrase book. Just learn hello, goodbye, thank you, please, and cheers. Usually just those 5 words in any given language. Just remember them for a few days and you're cushy. Okay, let's go into the geography here. I'm vaguely aware that we are actually massively behind time already. We're 36 minutes in. So let's head over to the map, shall we? Mappy, map. Okay. This planet is called Planet Earth, and which unfortunately sounds a bit like Planet Turp, but never mind. Now we can zoom in on this country here, which is called Bulgaria, and give you a little bit of context of where it is. Obviously, this whole area, so if you draw a line down here to Thessaloniki, and then you include all this area here to Istanbul, and then see where you got the mountains there, so this southern bit of Bulgaria. So that area there, I'm drawing around really slowly, a bit like that. That used to be called Thrace. Okay, so that's the ancient kingdom of Thrace. Or well, no, it wasn't really a kingdom. It was an area, I guess, of Thrace. Bulgaria borders Romania, Serbia, North Macedonia, which used to be called the former Yugoslavian Republic of Macedonia. Now it's just called North Macedonia. And Greece, obviously, along here. And also Turkey. So you can actually get the train or bus or something from Istanbul, and you can go through Bulgaria, through Serbia into Europe, which I've done a few times, actually. I don't know if the train still runs, actually. I used to be able to get a train from Bucharest in Romania. I think it went through Plovdiv over here, and then it went to Thessaloniki in Greece. It was an overnight train. You could sleep on the train. I don't think it runs anymore, unfortunately, which is a bit poo. But never mind. Anyway, so here's some great places on the coast. There's Varna there, which I hear is fantastic. I've never been there myself, but I've heard some really good reports about it. A resort there on the Black Sea. And also Burgas down here as well is also worth checking out. The capital, Sofia, is over on this corner here. So I'm just going to move over a little bit. And as you see, if I go to the satellite image, it's quite mountainous. It's quite a mountainous area, old Bulgaria. And if we go to the north, where it has a border with Romania, pretty much this entire border here, I think it's the whole one, is actually the River Danube. So we can zoom in. Yeah, there you go. And you'll see the old Danube River, which goes through a shitload of European countries, actually. But that provides the entire border between the two countries. And a while ago, I was in Bulgaria. God, when was this? When was I there? I was there in 2007, and we drove from Sofia up north, and we were trying to get into Romania because we wanted to go to Dracula's castle in Bran. And we got to the border, and our sat-nav just went, yeah, there's a road. There was no road. There was no bridge. We had to get on a ferry. To get on this ferry, it's literally you put the car on it, and 5 minutes later, you take the car off. But we had to wait ages to get on the ferry. But we didn't realise because the sat-nav just said, there's a road. We could have just kept on driving, just straight into the River Danube. But there you go. So there you go. That's easy enough. It is indeed. And on the western side, it's separated from Macedonia, North Macedonia, sorry, by mountains, and by Serbia by mountains as well. It's actually quite difficult to get into. It's not impossible, but you can actually get to Sofia pretty quick. But then once you get into Sofia, if you want to try and go to Skopje, the capital of North Macedonia, it takes ages because you're just winding through all of the mountains. So it's quite a long journey. You might be best going down into Greece, going to Thessaloniki, and then coming up into North Macedonia. In the days when you could just travel around Europe without any problems. Anyway, hope those days are coming back soon. Chumai says, I watched a video of a recent trip from London to Istanbul by train. I'm sure that it went from Sofia by sleeper to Turkey. Oh, great. So that train's still going. That is a cool train to take. It's really old fashioned. It goes really slowly, but it's a fantastic journey. I couldn't recommend it enough. Dracula, you went to Jacob Rees-Mogg's house. Well, no, it was Vlad the Impaler. It's the old castle that Vlad the Impaler apparently lived in. I've got a video of it on YouTube. I'll have to put a link up somewhere. It's quite funny. I completely take the piss. Okay, so we are 40 minutes in. Although I was 10 minutes late, so let's say we're half an hour in. We are at the halfway point, ladies and gentlemen. So let's crack on with the history. You have to go to Varna. It's a great city, brilliant nightlife and food. You include a Danube in Bulgaria. Must be amazing. Snakes through the mountains, beautiful. Yeah, indeed. We need a strong South Slavic countries. What, in the EU? Yes, as many countries as possible. Just let them all in. Let's just all have a party and let's move about, go where we want. buy a house in Bulgaria. Okay, so which is I think being a sort of older millennial, it's the only place I'll be able to afford to buy a house is probably in Bulgaria. So what else do you need to know? You got I spoke about Varna. The country's size is about 110,000 square kilometers. It's about a third the size of Finland. And the highest peak on the Balkan Peninsula is Musala Peak, which is located in Rila Mountain, and it rises in Bulgaria, which rises nearly 300 meters above sea level. That's quite high. So, history. Let's go. Let's go for history. Long live Slavs. Yes, I'll drink to that. Oh, I forgot what the word is for cheers. If someone wants to find out the Bulgarian word for cheers, I'll be much appreciative. If it's Nostrovia, then okay. Right, so let's go back in time to 40,000 years ago. Caves in the Balkan Mountains have indicated human habitation as far back as the Upper Paleolithic period, 40,000 years ago. But it wasn't until about 6,000 to 5,000 BC, so that's 8,000 to 7,000 to 8,000 years ago, that Bulgaria's earliest inhabitants, permanent inhabitants, established settlements in and around caves during the Neolithic period. It's worth knowing that there were literally, I think there's thousands of caves in Bulgaria. It's a very cavey place. There's lots of caves going on. But by about 5,000 BC, these caves have been abandoned for huts because, it's better to live in a hut than in a cave. So yeah, and then in Bulgaria, we have found the oldest golden treasure, so not just a block of gold, but gold that's actually been shaped into something. They found 3,000 gold objects dating back more than 6,000 years. 6,000 years. So the gold treasure is considered the oldest processed gold in the world, dating back to the Copper Age, and Varna culture is dated to around 4,400 to 4,100 BC. So a bloody long time ago when people were prattling around with gold even back then. I read a book once called Black Elk Speaks, and it's one of the last indigenous people of North America who was there, remembers the time before the white man turned up. And in his book, he regards gold, I think he calls it something like useless yellow metal makes white man go crazy, which I really like. Anyway, so then from 4000 BC onwards, you have the Thracian tribes. They were warlike, they were disparate. They covered by modern-day Bulgaria. They settled along the Black Sea coast around 3000 BC and expanded into Greece and Anatolia, which is the part of Greece, part of Turkey that touches the part of Turkey that is part of Europe or Asia. I can't remember. Anyway, by 2000 BC. Jeez, I'm doing well here, aren't I? I think I need some super chats, guys. I think if I got some super chats, I'll be able to read my notes better. Anyway, so Greek chroniclers regarded the Thracian customs with disdain, and they were not averse to reporting the racier aspects of Thracian life. We're told they practiced polygamy, and the younger women were encouraged to be sexually promiscuous before marriage. How very dare they? But far from being the bloodthirsty savages portrayed by classical authors, though, the Thracians were accomplished farmers and artists. They grew wealthy from trading jewellery, copper and gold. Recent archaeological excavations around Shipka in central Bulgaria have unearthed some astounding works of art, including the gold mask and the bronze head of a Thracian king, which you can now go and see at Sophia's Archaeological Museum. And when I say Sophia, I mean the capital, not someone called Sophia who has a museum. I've got a super chat. Yay! David Vin says, thanks for this, Graham. So sick of lockdown and can't wait to get out and see some amazing places on our doorstep. Yes, thanks, David. Navikanite, and thank you for the €15 super chat. Yes. It's worth mentioning. If I don't mention the super chats, I tend not to get super chats. So sorry if I mention them a bit too much in these shows, but they are live for a reason. And also you get to enjoy all the live bloopers and and things that go wrong as I'm talking. Jeremy Goff, £5. Thank you. I've knocked up a 20-question quiz if you want to give your voice a break. Oh, brilliant, Jeremy. Okay, yeah, let's do that. We'll on Discord after the show. Let's crack on with the history then. So, yes, by 611 BC, Greek settlers from the city-state of Miletus established what became known as Sozopol on the Black Sea coast. It was the first classically democratic state on Bulgarian territory, with all males over the age of 18 eligible to vote for the governing assembly, which is really cool. Meanwhile, Orpheus, we're going to talk about him for a moment. He's a semi-divine lyre player and singer, one of the most popular and enduring in antiquity. And he spawned this mystery cult in Greece and elsewhere in the holistic world. But it's thought that the original Orpheus was a real person, born somewhere in the neighborhood of Gela. And his story is well known. His music soothed men, beasts, and even trees. Yes, you noisy trees, I'm going to soothe you with my lyre. When he travelled with Jason and the Argonauts on the quest for the Golden Fleece, and on which his lyre plucking helpfully drowned out the alluring song of the sirens to dash the young sailors on the rocks, and then he headed into the underworld to fetch his wife Eurydice, who unfortunately decided to go for a trip to hell, Hades. Well, it wasn't really hell. It wasn't hell. It's just the afterlife, but we call it Hades, so we associate that with hell for whatever reason. But what happened was he was on his way out, and he was told to not turn around and look at her until he was out, and he couldn't hold himself anymore. So just before he was about to leave, he turned around and she turned into, I don't know, dust or something. So then he went off into the mountains, and he sat there playing his lyre, like really sad. And then these women turned up and ripped him into pieces because they were sick of him bloody moaning about his dead wife. They threw his body in a bit. And this isn't funny, but I mean, obviously, because it probably didn't happen, but I just found that really funny. And they're like, will you stop playing that miserable bloody music? Oh, God, what would they do to Radiohead? Anyway, they ripped him into pieces, and they dumped his dismembered remains in the river. Harsh. Okay, we've all been to gigs where we've thought, come on, but that's taken a bit far. Right, in 335 BC, the Macedonian king Alexander the Great extended the Thracian holdings of his father Philip II of Macedon by marching to the Danube River and securing it as the northernmost border of his massive empire. So, as I showed you on the map there, the Danube River is the border between Bulgaria and Romania. So obviously that being two different places has been set in stone for a very, very long time, thousands of years. So the Greeks avoided most of the southern and central Bulgaria because of the belligerent Thracians, who had a bit of a reputation. I think they sound great. However, the Greeks did have a profound influence on the region and arts and culture throughout the Balkans for over 900 years. The Greek language was used extensively by non-Greeks for business, education and administration. And the Bulgarian language still has many words of Greek origin. And the patriarch of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church was based in Athens for centuries. The Romans defeated the Macedonian Empire in 168 BC. But it wasn't until the middle of the 1st century AD that they began making inroad into Thrace. In 46 AD, so 46 years after Jesus was born. Well, it's probably more like 50 years because he was born in 4 BC, but who's counting? And his name was Joshua, but that's a lesson for another day. Thrace fell under the sway of the Roman Empire in 46 AD and was carved up into provinces of Thrace in the south and Moesia in the north, and Ulpia Sedica, which is modern-day Sofia, becoming the capital of Inner Dacia. Goths, Visigoths, Vandals. Oh, there's bloody composers. Goths, Visigoths, Vandals, and Huns, and a distressing array of other barbarian types began to descending on the Roman provinces in Bulgaria from the 3rd century AD onwards, causing a lot of havoc. Although a lot of these raids were sporadic and short-lived. The Huns were like the Vikings of southern Europe. In 293 AD, the Emperor Diocletian established the tetrarchy, the rule of four, from the word Tetris, the video game, radically reorganizing the imperial administration. Regional capitals were established, including Serdica, which is now called Sofia. So it was, back there in 293 AD, it was already a big administrative and important centre. In 330 AD, the city of Constantinople is a very long word. Modern Istanbul, because it's no longer Constantinople. Why they changed it, I can't say. Maybe they liked it better that way. It was founded by the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great. Oh, it's a bit arrogant, isn't it? Calling something like after yourself. Like, I don't know. Say I had an island, I called it Ginger Island because I am ginger. I mean, how arrogant would you have to be? Oh, okay, good point. It was on the site of ancient Byzantium, and it was declared the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. The division of the empire meant that the Bulgarian provinces were now ruled from that city. So basically you had the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire, or the Byzantine Empire. By the late 4th century, the Western Roman Empire had fallen just into rack and ruin. But the Byzantine Empire just continued on for another 1,000 freaking years, man. Wow, it's quite impressive. Cricket, thank you very much for the $10 super chat. Was Bulgaria where we were on the bus where the old woman was trying to pick up on you and the bus driver was drinking your Russian vodka and we got pulled over by the police? Yes. I love Bulgaria. Right, Cricket and I travelled through Bulgaria together on the Odyssey expedition in 2017, and it was a bloody good laugh. The whole thing was a bloody good laugh. But yeah, crazy days. I don't know, was the driver drinking my vodka? Naughty. Anyway, in 443 AD, Attila the Hun and his army crossed the Danube, sweeping into Roman territory and sacking the cities of Sofia and Plovdiv before being paid off with gold from the emperor, which is a good way of getting rid of your enemies, I guess. In 681 AD, the first Bulgarian Empire was founded by Khan Aspur, with his capital at Pliska. It expanded under Tervel, who was Khan Tervel, from 701 to 718. It reached its largest extent under the rule of Tsar Simeon from 893 to 927 before settling into a slow decline. The 9th century Bulgar ruler Khan Krum was known as the Dreadful, and he earned his name from his fierceness in battle and his collection of enemy skulls, including that of the Byzantine Emperor Nicephorus, I think his name is, who, he used his skull as a wine goblet. Here I am. What's his name? Vast from Flea Bottom. Drinking wine from the skull of Joe Mormont. Anyway, savage days. In 855 AD, Saints Kirill and Methodiy, they created what was called the Gagolic alphabet, which became the Cyrillic alphabet. And by the end of Khan Presian's reign, who was from 837 to 825, the Bulgarian state encompassed a huge swathe of southeast Europe, including modern-day Romania, so they pushed up over the Danube into Romania, Moldova, and Macedonia. Moldova is even further north. I mean, it's on the northern side, the northeastern side of Romania. So yeah, bloody hell, wow. They made it quite far. And then in 865 AD, so we're still we're nowhere near present day. I don't know if I'm going to get finished on this bloody topic in time. Mark Wharton, welcome to level 1. Welcome. In 865 AD, Orthodox Christianity was adopted as the official state religion by Khan Boris, who retired into a monastery a few years later. But Yeah, but 4 years later, he suppressed his son Vladimir's attempts to reinstate paganism by blinding him. Yeah, you're a monk. What are you doing going around blinding people, you crazy person? His son wants to bring back paganism because it's a bit more fun. And his dad came back and blinded him, deposed him. But his second son, who was known as Tsar Simeon, who I've just mentioned, led a decisive victory over the Byzantines, making the Bulgarian Empire the greatest power in Europe. That was in 917. The Bulgarian Empire stretched at that time from the Adriatic Sea to the Aegean Sea and from the Dnieper River, northeast of Bulgaria, was the largest and most powerful in Europe at the time. In 972 AD, the Bulgarian capital, Veliki Praslav, is captured and burned to the ground by the Byzantines, forcing Bulgarians to decamp to Ohrid and the capital until its loss several decades later, again to the Byzantine Empire. It's not a good idea to be a country on the doorstep of sort of empires that like to expand a lot, I guess. According to gory but probably fanciful legend, Emperor Basil II, or Bulgar Slayer as he was known, ordered 15,000 Bulgarian soldiers to be blinded and marched back to their leader, who promptly expired from grief. He actually died some months later from the battle. In 1018, Ohrid fell and Bulgaria officially became part of the Byzantine Empire. It wasn't an outpost doing its own thing under the shadow of the Byzantine Empire. It was actually part of the Byzantine Empire. It was swallowed whole. David says, you should do your island episode of Hughes the World using our official name of Aya. Many calls because I don't want to have to wait. Mainly because I don't want to have to wait. Oh, I see. So yeah, if I do it under E, we'll get there a lot faster. Maybe I will. No, I'm going to do Côte d'Ivoire. I'm going to do Côte d'Ivoire under the seas. I'm not going to do it as Ivory Coast. I'll think. Let me think about it. But thank you very much for the super chat, David. More super chats coming in. I'll be more happy to change the name of any given country so we get there faster. Which is what I think happened with Swaziland, because they obviously changed the name to Eswatini, so I'll get to it faster. Anyway, moving swiftly on. In 1014 AD, we're actually now in the four numbers, which is good. 15,000 Bulgarian soldiers are captured, as I just said. And then in 1018, so 4 years later, the Bulgarian capital is finally captured, and Bulgaria loses its independence for 170 years. It's under the Byzantine yoke. In 1185 to 1396, there was a successful uprising against the Byzantine Empire. Autocratic brothers Asen and Peter established the Second Bulgarian Empire, they make Veliko Tarnovo the new capital city. In 1204, the Byzantines fell victim to the Fourth Crusade, whose leader, Baldwin of Flanders, tremble behind me, before me. I am Baldwin of Flanders. A very manly name, isn't it? Declared himself emperor. Taserface. Invading Bulgaria the following year, though, he was captured and spent the rest of his days in a tower. So there you go. He was on the Fourth Crusade, and he ended up getting taken out in Bulgaria. Tsar Kaledin gained papal support for the expansion of the Bulgarian Empire by converting to Roman Catholicism in the same year. But most Bulgarians remained loyal to the Orthodox Church. Kaledin was murdered in a coup 3 years later in 1207, and the old religion was restored a few years later in 1232. Mikey C71, woo! Payday super chat for weekend beers. Thank you very much, Mikey. You are a legend. Thank you. I really appreciate it. So, 1385. As the Bulgarian Tsar's power, so the king was called the Tsar, just like in Russia, the Bulgarian Tsar's power grew ever weaker. The brothers John and Constantine Dragesh established a short-lived principality covering southeastern Bulgaria and Macedonia. That lasts just 14 years, from 1381 to 1385. In 1396, Bulgaria's last native king, Tsar Ivan Shishman, he is defeated, and the whole of Bulgaria is finally incorporated into the expansive, new, shiny Ottoman Empire, not the Byzantine Empire, the Ottoman Empire. Ushering in 500 years of harsh feudal rule from Constantinople. Huge numbers of Bulgarians. Some estimates suggest maybe half the population of Bulgaria were either killed or carried off to slavery. Many churches and monasteries were destroyed or closed, and numerous uprisings were put down with tremendous and very, very cruel ferocity. And a lot of Bulgarians actually emigrated during this period. 1444 was the big Battle of Varna. So just to give you some, this resulted in a crushing defeat for an army comprised largely of Hungarians and Serbs, and they were crushed by a much larger Turkish force operating, obviously, out of the Ottoman Empire, out of Constantinople. It was the last battle of the last Crusade against the Ottomans. Just so you give a little bit of context to this, by the early 15th century, Bulgaria, Serbia, and Transylvania had fallen to the advancing armies of the Ottoman Empire. Hungary looked vulnerable, and things were looking increasingly bleak for beleaguered Byzantium. It seemed only a matter of time before the mighty Christian capital of Constantinople itself fell. It was within this desperate atmosphere that Pope Eugenius IV called for a crusade against the Turks, and in 1443, a 25,000 strong army under the leadership of King Ladislas of Hungary and Poland set sail from Venice. They scored an epic success, swimming through Serbia and taking Sofia. And in the summer of 1444, they did a deal with Sultan Murad II to say, agree to these territorial concessions, including the return of Serbia and a 10-year truce. The Pope found out about this. He said, no, tell them to piss off. So the message got back to Ladislas and said, you've got to tell them to piss off. So he told them to piss off, and eventually that resulted in the war, the Battle of Narva, in which the Sultan, with 80,000 men behind him, rushed up the coast, and on 10th of November 1444, they met a much smaller Crusader army at the Battle of Narva, which was at the Battle of Varna, and they were expecting reinforcements. They thought reinforcements were going to turn up, and the reinforcements never got there. Ladislas was killed, and his army almost entirely destroyed. Constantinople fell to the Turks 9 years later. Just to jump into the comments for a moment, Dimtr Takev says, Tsar is Bulgarian, not Russian title. It was given to Bulgars for the help in defense of Constantinople when it was besieged by the Arabs. It's derivative from Caesar. Oh yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? Caesar, like king in the old languages, Latin. Okay, cool. I'll go with that. I'm getting really croaky here. I'm going to have to take a drink. Will you be covering East Timor or Timor-Leste? Oh, that's a really good question. Can I wait till I get to the E's next year? Seriously, it's going to be next year before I get to the E's. But yeah, when we get there, I'll make a decision. I'll make a... Should be Timor-Leste. Let's just say it's whatever they want to be called. Let's just go on that rule. But then I suppose countries like Egypt, its real name is Mizr. So should I call it Mizr or should I call it Egypt? I'm going to call it Egypt, obviously. Graham is like a tap of knowledge stuck on fully open. Do you know how painful it is to have all this stuff in my head? it gives me headaches. I need to do some what's it called? Trepanning, was it, when they used to put a hole in your head to let the bad spirits out, or giving you headaches. Anyway, Constantinople fell to the Turks, and it'd be centuries before the Balkans were free again. In 1598, religious and civic leaders had the first Tarnovo uprising against Turkish rule, briefly liberating Veliko Tarnovo and crowning a new Tsar. But the revolt was brutally crushed, and thousands of Bulgarians ended up fleeing over the border into into what is now Romania. In 1686, major military defeats inflicted on the Turks by the Austrian army encouraged widespread armed revolt in northern Bulgaria, but the second Turnovo uprising, a good 90 years after the first, as it became known, is again swiftly put down by the Ottomans. In 1762, the national revival era begins with the dissemination of Pasky Hilandarski's Slav Bulgarian history, and continues into the 19th century, when Bulgarian language education and in the 1840s and the Bulgarian Orthodox Church in the 1870s are established. In 1854 to 56, the Crimean War brings British and Turkish troops to Bulgaria, and Varna becomes an important garrison town. The Turks are persuaded to open up Bulgaria to international trade, which helps the Bulgarians, obviously. And in 1870, obviously, the official Turkish official Turkish recognition of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church. This was a crucial step for Bulgaria towards independence. That was in 1870. That's an important date in Bulgarian history. 6 years later, in 1876, the April Uprising, another uprising against the Ottoman rule, begins in Koprivnice. Its quick suppression is followed by civilian massacres, though, causing international outrage. In November, the Turks reject Bulgarian autonomy and they hold the Constantinople Conference, which ends with no decision made on anything really, and that led to 1877, the Russo-Turkish War. This is when the Russian army, headed by Tsar Alexander II, invaded Bulgaria and inflicted a heavy defeat on the forces of the Ottoman Empire, forcing the Turks to sign the Treaty of San Stefano, ceding 60% of the Balkan Peninsula to Bulgaria. The Russian Tsar, Alexander II, known to Bulgarians as the Tsar Liberator, for freeing Bulgaria from the Ottoman Empire, abolished serfdom in his empire in 1861. But unfortunately for him, he was assassinated in 1881. 3 years earlier, in 1878, only 4 months after the gains of San Stefano, the Western powers carved Bulgaria up at the Treaty of Berlin, fearing a big Bulgaria would be too powerful a Russian ally. And this sowed the seeds for the beginning of World War I, because World War I obviously started in 1914 with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the Austrian heir to the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, who was assassinated in Sarajevo, in what's now Bosnia. It all started with this fighting down in the Balkan states. And don't forget, Bulgaria is a Balkan state. It's a part of the Balkans, technically, because it's part of the Balkan Mountains. In 6th of April 1879, the first Bulgarian National Assembly was convened at Veliko Turnovo to adopt a constitution. And on 26th of June that year, 1879, Alexander Battenberg, the German prince, was elected head of state. Also in March of 1879, Albert Einstein was born. Just thought I'd throw that in there. I think he was born in Ulm in Germany. I'll have to look that up. 1885, Bulgaria is reunited with its Ottoman-controlled land in a bloodless coup. And the Turks prepare for war with Serbia, supported by Austria-Hungary. Serbia, supported by Austria-Hungary, invades Bulgaria, but is soon defeated. And at that point, the country's new borders are internationally recognized. A year later, Alexander was forced to abdicate in 1886 and replaced by Prince, later King Ferdinand of the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha family, which is the same family as Queen Victoria. Saxe-Coburg-Gothas, they get everywhere, they do. In 1908, Prince Ferdinand takes advantage of the political chaos in Turkey to declare full independence from the Ottoman, I don't know how to say this, it's like sovereignty. I don't know what the word is, but sovereignty for the they were like a protectorate of the Ottoman Empire, but they were independent, and he wanted full autonomy. Bulgaria states it upgrades its status from principality to a kingdom, and Ferdinand is crowned Tsar, which is nice. In 1912, 2 years before the First World War, Bulgaria and its neighbours fight Turkey in the First Balkan War in 1912, reclaiming more territory from the Ottoman Empire. The Allies fall out over the spoils, and Bulgaria is defeated by Greece and Serbia in the Second Balkan War. A year later, in 1914, Bulgaria enters World War I on the side of the Central Powers, which ironically included Turkey, of all countries to include in your, I'll fight for you, I'll die for your country. The country that's dominated us and subjugated us for 500 years. They joined in 1915, a bit late actually. Facing widespread opposition to his pro-German policies, Ferdinand abdicated 3 years later in favour of his son, the unfortunately named Boris III. In 1919, you can keep that. In 1919, the Treaty of Neuilly punishes Georgia for its German alliance in World War I, granting huge swathes of land to its neighbours and saddling the government with crippling and humiliating repatriation payments, which led to a lot of instability, which kind of explains a lot of the sort of 20th century history of Bulgaria. It all comes down to that particular treaty. It wasn't the Treaty of Versailles. It was the Treaty of Neuilly. In 1923, there was an assassination of the Prime Minister at the time. It was a guy called Alexander Saboyinsky. He was killed in a bloody coup by a right-wing military supporters of Macedonian revolutionaries. A communist uprising that year is brutally repressed, and the Communist Party is banned. In 1940, in the southern Dubrovka region, it was been occupied by Romania since the end of the Balkan Wars. It's finally returned to Bulgaria for a nominal fee, and Bulgarian troops make a triumphant entry into Balchik and the other towns of that area. In 1941, after declaring neutrality at the beginning of World War II in 1939, Bulgaria is persuaded to join the Axis powers. God, Bulgaria, what are you doing? What are you doing, Bulgaria? Why are you joining the bad guys? What are you thinking? And after German troops are stationed along the Danube and declares war on Britain and France, but not on the Soviet Union. Okay. In 1945 to 46, after scoring victories in the 1945 elections, the communists gained power under their leader, Georgy Dimitrov. And in 1946, the People's Republic of Bulgaria is proclaimed with backing from the Soviet Union. So it's important to remember that, like its northern neighbour Romania, Bulgaria was never part of the USSR. It was just an affiliated member of the Iron Curtain Brigade, as was Serbia. The Yugoslavia at the time, but Yugoslavia kind of fell out with the Soviet Union quite bitterly, and I think that the Soviet Union tried to assassinate Tito, who was the leader of Yugoslavia back then. So they fell out, but Bulgaria stayed on pretty good terms with the Soviet Union right to the end, to be honest with you. In 1957, the first hotel in the planned package resort beach of the beach resort of Golden Sands marks the start of mass tourism in Bulgaria. In the 1960s, it becomes a popular holiday destination for tourists from across the Eastern Bloc. Although you can get there from the West, but you need visas to get over there. But some people went skiing in Bulgaria and stuff and had a bloody good time, apparently. In 1958, the communist government initiated a collective... here we go. Mass collectivization of agriculture in a program known as the Great Leap Forward. Didn't they have one of them in China? And like millions of people died. Yeah. It intended to fulfill its 5-year plan for modernization in just 3 years. Do you know what's better than a 5-year plan? A 3-year plan. Oh, jeez. Right, anyway, in 1978, in the murky scenario that could have been written by Ian Fleming of James Bond novel fame, Bulgarian dissident Georgy Markov is assassinated in London with a poisoned umbrella tip by an agent of the Bulgarian Secret Service. There you go. Watch out for those poison umbrella tips. It's quite famous, that, actually. In 1981, Bulgaria celebrated its 1300th anniversary, take that, America, of the founding of the Bulgarian state, spending lavish amounts of money on nationwide celebrations and the building of public monuments. In 1984, a nationalistic campaign begins. This is pretty bad as well, actually, aimed at forcing the country's ethnic Turkish population to adopt Bulgarian names and to assimilate into mainstream Bulgarian society. Obviously, a mass exodus of Turks ensues. That's not multiculturalism. That's not a melting pot. You don't force... I don't know. In 1989 to 1990, democratic changes swept across Eastern Europe. Obviously, in November 1989, the Berlin Wall came down, and the Soviet Union started to crumble. Todor Zhigov's communist regime collapsed in Romania, but the first free parliamentary elections are won by the Bulgarian Socialist Party, which was the new name for the Communist Party. So, people didn't hate them. Anyway, after the collapse of the communist regime, elections are held in Bulgaria, and the socialist candidate, whose name was Zelyu Zelev, becomes the country's first democratically elected president. In 1992, Bulgaria was the first country to recognize the independence of the then Republic of Macedonia. Obviously, it was then Fyrom, and now it's North Macedonia. Bulgaria, however, and this is a bone of contention between Bulgaria and Macedonia, Bulgaria has refused to acknowledge or recognize the existence of a separate ethnic Macedonian nation and a separate Macedonian language. The ethnic Macedonian nation. So that they recognize the nation, but they don't recognize it as an ethnicity, as North Macedonians, which really pisses off the North Macedonians, who are like, excuse me? Like, piss off? And they're like, no, you belong to us. Meanwhile, Serbia's looking down at Kosovo and going, you belong to us, you're part of Serbia. And Kosovo's like, we don't want to be part of Serbia. Yeah, same old. Right, I think they should let people who live anywhere they want in the world decide on their own, identity. Whether they want to be independent or not, I think that's what should be up to the people who live in that particular place. I'm just old-fashioned like that. Anyway, and that goes for defending the British people who live in the Falkland Islands. But it also means that I think that Scotland should have another independence referendum, because the first one was a lie. The first one was sold on the fact that if they voted to leave the United Kingdom, they would have to rejoin the EU, and they'd be kicked out of the EU and have to rejoin, and that'd be really difficult. It was sold on a lie. So, sorry, but if you buy a product and it's dysfunctional, does not work, you have a right to take it back and ask for another one. Anyway, in 2001, where was I? Sorry, in 1996, there was massive inflation, widespread corruption, and plummeting wages caused an economic crisis, and it made Bulgaria the poorest country in Europe for a time. The socialist government collapsed, and elections bring a democratic coalition to power. In 2001, Bulgaria's former child king, the charismatic Simeon Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, just Saxe-Coburg, I guess, exiled by the communists as a child, is elected prime minister just months after founding a new political party, the National Movement. And yes, Tsar Simeon II was prime minister from 2001 to 2005. In 2004, Bulgaria puts its communist history behind it, and it joins it joins NATO. It said goodbye to the Warsaw Pact and says hello to NATO. Bulgarian troops are posted overseas in peacekeeping roles. And just 3 years later, in 2007, on the 1st of January, Bulgaria joined the European Union, introducing the Cyrillic alphabet to the polyglot organization. So now on the notes, at first you just had Euro written in Roman, and then you had Latin, and then you had underneath that Euro written in Greek. Now you have Euro written in the 3 languages, because it also includes Cyrillic, which is cool. And it means that things are already set up for when Serbia join, I guess. Cheers. My messages have not been updating. I'm very sorry. Can Brexit be stopped by a nominal fee? Surely the Brexit maniacs can be bought off. Perhaps they'd like an electric Nissan car. Oh, maybe. I don't know. Graham, does the Bulgarian national anthem have lyrics? Yes, it does. I think Graham is wrapping up 100 years of Bulgarian history. It's like 10,000 years, but we're going to get there in the end. Graham, the Turks force people to convert or be chopped up. Yes. I know, but the Turks who were living there in the 80s, in the 1980s, didn't do that. But yeah, I like multiculturalism. I like the fact that people have their own languages and their own culture, and they can speak English as a second language. But if they want to, I'm not going to force it on anyone, because God knows British people are terrible at learning other people's languages. God damn it! You know, these British people who lived in Spain for years and years and never bothered to learn Spanish, etc. But that's something we can talk about in Hughes round. This is just about, trying to big up some of the countries of the world that are all right. Bulgaria's all right. It's been through a lot of shit, but it turned out all right in the end, I think. I like to think. It joined the EU. Although the Bulgarian government has come under a lot of pressure to deal more firmly with organised crime and environmental problems. In 2010, Bulgaria was ranked 32nd between Greece and Lithuania out of 181 countries in the Globalization Index. Going forward to today, basically there's an election coming up next week, and there are loads of pre-election scandals going on. There's a Watergate-style wiretapping scandal. A Watergate-style wiretapping scandal. There's an agricultural tycoon accusing the government of former Prime Minister Boyko Borisov of extortion, and there's a state-owned bank providing hundreds of millions of euros to a small batch of favoured companies. I can't even. Go with God, Bulgaria. I've got nothing to say on this matter, because God knows my country is incredibly, incredibly corrupt at the moment. And you're talking about hundreds of millions of euros. We're talking about billions of euros or pounds in the UK that have been given out to the government's mates for PPE that didn't even fucking work. Anyway, so in 2024, moving to the future, like I said earlier, they're looking to adopt the euro currency. The current Prime Minister, this is the thing I had to look up, is a guy called Stefan Yanev. I thought it would be Boyko Borisov. He was Prime Minister from 2009 to 2013, and then from 2014 to 2017, and then 2017 to 2021. But he actually stood down or was kicked out or whatever, I don't know, in May this year. And so now we have a caretaker PM until the elections next week, and then I guess there might be a new Prime Minister, or maybe Boyko Borisov might run again. I don't know if he can. Anyway, so what can I say? You don't need a visa. You can just go if you're from the US or Canada or Australia or New Zealand or South Africa or the EU. Yeah, you don't need a visa. So and it's beautiful and it's cheap and it's beautiful and the people are lovely and they're hilarious and they like to drink, and that just ticks all my boxes. Thank you very much. Yes, you get the same Oxbridge Eton lot running the place. I don't think they have an Oxbridge in Bulgaria, but they might do. I don't know. So there you go. There's about 150 resorts in Bulgaria. There's 26 marine resorts. There's at least 56 mountain resorts, and there are 58 ecological resorts. Which, just there are lots of places to hang out, and it's really cheap. It's really cheap, and the people are lovely, and the food's pretty good. I like the food. I know people go, "Oh, Eastern Europe, it's all a bit bland and everything," but no, I like it. It's quite. A lot of the food over there is quite stodgy, but when you get down towards Greece, you get that sort of nice mixture of, hearty, stodgy food, the stuff I like scouse, but also heading down towards Greece, so that really nice Mediterranean food that you get down there. So, yes, Graham, what is the official religion in Bulgaria? Well, it's Eastern Bulgarian Orthodox is the official religion in Bulgaria. So yes, they follow they have a patriarch, I think, instead of a pope, but that's quite similar to the countries around there, like Greece and North Macedonia and stuff, where they have still Orthodox Christianity and Russia, obviously, Russian Orthodox. DimTR says, ultra nationalist here. A lot of Turkish people fighted for Bulgaria during a bunch of our wars. What communists did was ugly. Macedonia question, sadly not that simple. I know, DimTR, that there's a lot to be said about this. For many Bulgarians, there is no question. Macedonians are simply Bulgarians in denial, and their country is part of the Bulgarian state. And it was unfairly detached by bad luck and great powers, intrigues and stuff. So, yeah. So you kind of understand why they that they feel that way. But at the same time, the self-proclaimed Macedonian minority in Bulgaria have had a tough time, just gaining acceptance. It's a big thing. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of history here, and there's a lot of movement of the borders, and it's difficult to say you are definitely part of our country or we're part of yours. But the languages are different, I believe, from North Macedonia, which I think they still use the Cyrillic alphabet in North Macedonia. But the language is different, and they do see themselves as a separate bunch. And don't forget the argy-bargy about the name of Macedonia, which eventually became North Macedonia just a couple of years ago, was because of the Greeks, because they didn't like the idea of there being a Macedonia that was separate to Macedonia, the region of Greece, which is called Macedonia. But to me, I think, well, look, those things mixed up, because this happens also in China. There is an area of China called Mongolia. That's why it was called Outer Mongolia as a country, because it was the outer part of, it was outside of China. And that's why it's called Outer Mongolia. But we don't get confused. You don't need to be called North Mongolia, so we don't get it mixed up with the Mongolia province of China. There's a few incidents of this around the world where there's an area of a country and it's got the same name as the country that's next to it, funnily enough. But the problem with Macedonia calling itself Macedonia and having for a long time officially called itself the former Yugoslavian Republic of Macedonia was a bit of a mouthful. But now they've cut it down to North Macedonia, and I think everyone's happy. I think that's nice. But no, I do think that Bulgaria, I know it's complicated, but this sort of threatened one day we're going to annex Macedonia and they're going to become part of us again. I don't think it's particularly healthy, and it just reminds me of what's going on in South America between Venezuela, which claims half of Guyana, and also in Central America, where Guatemala claims half of Belize. Actually, all of Belize, I think. So, yeah, while those claims are still bobbing around, I think, come on. It's 2021, just leave it. I really don't think that the cricket-playing, English-speaking Queen as our head of state people in Belize really want to have want to be ruled from Guatemala City. I just don't think it's healthy. Anyway, right, okay. There's a city in Italy called San Marino, right? Great. Well, no, it's a bus stop. No, it's a train stop called S Marino. It might be short for Southern Marino. I don't know. But I typed it into the DB Barnes system and it came up with S Marino. And at the time, I didn't know there was no train station in bloody San Marino. It's going to be a fun episode. Scotland used to be called North Britain just after the Union. Wow, that's quite interesting. Wow. I don't think the Scottish probably like that very much. Let's make it to the moon. No possibility she come back there. Who's going to the moon? I want to go to the moon. I want to watch the Earth rise. Don't forget the Turks. Yes, put simply. City-states, gotta love them. The future. Well, the People's Republic of Liverpool. It's coming. So, I'm going to wrap up soon. So, thank you so much for watching, as always. And I hope you've enjoyed chatting about the history and the geography and the geopolitics of Bulgaria, and it wrestles free of the shackles of the Byzantines, the Ottomans, then the Soviet Union, and now it's voluntarily joined the EU because the EU is freaking awesome. Although I think that in a recent survey, a lot of people in Bulgaria didn't think their life had got much better from their membership of the EU. So I don't know. Just to be fair on both sides of that. Dim TR says no one wants to annex them, even the ultra-nationalists. The problem is that the higher-ups and the ultra-nationalists, Macedonia or common history. Yeah, I know. But look, it's just the way the chips are falling. And I've had to get used to the idea that Scotland's going to become an independent nation in the next few years, and that my country of Britain, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, will no longer exist in a few years' time. Because that's just the way history goes, you know. So, yeah, I think people should just get on with it. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of that. There's an essay that I'd love you to read by Christopher Hitchens, and it's called something like "The Tyranny of Small Differences." That's really fascinating, and it talks about Serbia. Actually, it talks about the Balkan conflict, and how I think he mentions how he talks about Northern Ireland and the differences between the Protestants and the Catholics, and he talks about the Balkan conflict and the differences between Croatia and Serbia, and the big difference between the Serbians and Croatians who speak the same language is that Serbia uses the Cyrillic alphabet and Croatia uses the Latin alphabet, and that's it. That's the big difference. That is the big divider between those two nations, and that is like, yeah, the countries where the differences are very small tend to fall out much more than countries where the differences are really, really big. The cultural differences are really, really big. So there you go. If they continue deporting, we'll have one person, Priti Patel. She would deport herself. Yeah, that's got to be the sign, hasn't it? You know, Priti Patel, deport yourself. Back to Uganda with you. Anyway, so thanks for watching. Like I say, and I'm going to head over to the Discord server. So if you give me one moment, I'm just going to bring it up so I can give you the link. We're going to head over there for a quiz now, and hopefully this could be something that we do after every Thursday episode. Hopefully I won't blather on so much in future. These episodes are really supposed to be an hour long, but they tend to go a little bit longer than that. It turns out that a lot of countries have very fascinating histories that go back a long way. There's a lot to get through. Yes, I will give you a link now to the let's have a look to the Rejoin EU Discord server. I might just change the name of this to like Hughes Round or something. I don't know how much we talk about the EU on this, rather than anything else that we just want to talk about. But I'm going to put this into the chat now. So if you want to head over there for the quiz, you are very, very welcome to do so. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, my friends, that's it. So thanks for watching. Thanks for the super chats. Really appreciate it. If you'd like to become a patron, head over to patreon.com/thatgingerscouser and support me in my channel and everything I do. And if you want to become a member on my YouTube channel, just press the button for join below this video somewhere. And yes, so until next time, where we'll be traveling to Burkina Faso, the land of upright men, capital Ouagadougou. I can't wait. Until next Thursday at 10 o'clock, I'll say thanks for watching. And until next time, fair winds and following seas, traveller.